Good morning and welcome to the Orange County School Board's work session, which has been scheduled today, Tuesday, June 24th, 2025, for the purpose of discussing program evaluation and policy IA student progression plan. The public will not have an opportunity to participate in this work session to provide public comment because this is not a regularly scheduled school board meeting. No action will be taken and there will be no open public comment period in which the public normally addresses the school board on relevant topics that are related to the work of the board. Thank you so much for being here this morning. We have Member Salamanca, Member Douglas, Member Vanos, Member Gallo, and Member Felder here, and Chair Jacobs is joining us telephonically. Chair, are you there?
I am. Thank you and good morning.
Good morning. And Member Ferrant is absent. As a reminder, board members will not be engaging in outside electronic or digital communication during the meeting, so we can focus on the matters immediately before us. To my fellow board members and district staff, when speaking, please make sure that your microphone is turned on and speak directly into it so that our YouTube viewers can hear you clearly. Again, thank you so much for participating in or attending today's meeting. We're going to begin with a moment of silence and then the Pledge of Allegiance. And now for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This morning, we are going to begin with members of our Research and Accountability Department that also entails program evaluation. As the board is aware, for the last several years, we have been engaged in various strategies to ensure that we are getting the best academic return on our investment of public dollars. Program evaluation is one of the tools that we use each year. The team selects various programs that they are going to evaluate. Some of them are done internally, some of them we outsource through Hanover. And last year, we changed the process of reporting. We thought it was so important that the board and the public is aware not only that we are following that process, but that then they can see the results of those evaluations and how we use that information as we move forward, especially in a time when financial dollars are limited. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Strategy Officer, Dr. Harold Border.
Good morning, Chair Jacobs, Vice Chair Byrd, and members of the board, Superintendent Vasquez. Thanks for the opportunity to provide our second yearly update. I'm joined today by several members of the Research Measurement and Strategy Office, including Senior Executive Director Sasser, Senior Director Allen, and our Director of Research, Dr. Xiaojiang Sun. Dr. Sun leads an incredible team of members that conduct program evaluation, including Ms. Mazzeo, Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Hu, Ms. Wu, and Mr. Piedra. The team is committed to providing information that our district can utilize in decision-making to support our students and staff. Mr. Allen will begin taking us through the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Border, and good morning, all. I'll provide an overview of today's presentation, as well as the purpose and process behind the district's program evaluation efforts. Our last board program evaluation presentation was in December 2024. We will walk through three main points today before opening the conversation for discussion. First, we'll review the purpose and process of program evaluation. Then we will spotlight outcomes from recent program evaluations and talk about the ongoing queue of work. Finally, we will have space for conversation and discussion. To briefly recap from previous presentations, program evaluation is a formal process of reviewing programs within the district with several purposes in mind: making data-informed decisions, fostering improvement, and allocating resources. OCPS uses two general processes for conducting program evaluations. Internal evaluations are conducted by members of the OCPS Research Department, and external evaluations are conducted by contracted vendors, and a member of our research department serves as the primary point of contact for framing the evaluation, reviewing documents, and communicating with the vendor. Our program evaluations generally look at process or implementation and/or outcome. Both types of evaluations are often used for the same program. Many recent evaluations in our department have followed a phased approach that begins with an implementation evaluation, which is later followed by an outcome evaluation. We will present information about program evaluation findings for the following programs: AIM Institute, Edgenuity, iExcel Math, and SuccessMaker. And I'll now turn the presentation to Dr. Xiaogang Sun to discuss findings from these program evaluations that were conducted both by OCPS Research Department and in collaboration with external evaluators.
Good morning. First, we're going to discuss the AIM Institute program evaluation. OCPS launched AIM Pathway in 1920 school year as a voluntary professional development initiative focused on literacy instruction for district leaders, school administrators, and teachers. This program was funded through ESSA, supporting teachers in fulfilling state-mandated professional learning requirements and enhancing literacy instruction. The program employs an interactive, research-based approach structured around learning, practicing, and applying literacy instruction techniques aligned to the science of reading. The evaluation utilized the mixed methods approach, incorporating surveys, interviews, and document analysis. Key findings from this evaluation. Findings number 1, exceeding participation goals. 1,374 teachers and 164 administrators completed at least one AIM Pathway course, surpassing participation goals by 28% and 37% respectively. 77% of participants who started the course successfully completed at least one course. Findings number 2, challenges in monitoring engagement. Enrollment processes lacked consistency, leading to inefficiencies in participant tracking. A substantial number of granted seats remain unused due to limited monitoring and follow-up procedures. Also, district leaders identified the need for systematic tracking and improved utilization of participation data. Findings number 3, positive participation experience. 92% of elementary administrators found the professional training useful in their leadership roles. 72% of surveyed elementary teachers expressed satisfaction with the training. Recommendations for this program. Recommendation number 1, implement a structured enrollment system and proactive monitoring to maximize participation within available seats. Recommendation number 2, strengthen tracking mechanisms for participant engagement and course completion. Recommendation number 3, enhance communication strategies to ensure a broader understanding of program benefits and expectations. These findings and recommendations provide the foundation for refining the AIM Pathway program, maximizing its impact on literacy instruction within OCPS. Next, we're going to discuss the Ingenuity program evaluation. Ingenuity is an online program with video lessons, interactive tools, customizable features such as captions and translations, and formative and summative assessments. Middle and high school students who take and fail high school level core content can enroll in the program for credit recovery. Core courses include English, mathematics, science, and social studies. The research department collaborated with Hanover Research, a contracted research partner, and conducted an evaluation of the participation and performance of students in the Ingenuity course recovery courses that were offered during the 23-24 school year. Key findings. Findings number 1, second semester senior students have the highest ingenuity course completion rate compared to all other high school students and middle school students. 98% completion rate for second semester seniors compared to 55% completion rate for all other high schoolers and 25% completion rate for middle schoolers. The average final grade earned for completed ingenuity courses was 89% for second semester seniors, 88% for all other high school students, and 81% for middle school students. Findings number 2. Students who enroll in more than one ingenuity course tend to have higher rates of course completion compared to students who enroll in just one course. This trend holds for both middle and high school students. Findings number 3, 12% of all chronically absent students participated in ingenuity compared to about 4% of non-chronically absent students. Students who are chronically absent are more likely to participate and complete ingenuity course than peers. 72% completion rate for chronically absent students compared to 57% completion rate for non-chronically absent students. Additionally, 15% of all students who were suspended participated in ingenuity compared to about 5% of students who were not suspended. However, courses taken by suspended students were less likely to be completed than courses taken by non-suspended students. 61% completion rate for suspended students compared to 72% completion rate for non-suspended students. Findings number 4, most ingenuity courses are completed faster than the time estimated by the district. Courses taken by middle school students take more time to complete compared to those taken by second semester seniors and all other high school students. Recommendations for this program: OCPS request to Hanover was for an in-depth data analysis. Therefore, Hanover did not provide recommendations in their report. Implications from these results can be drawn best by the OCPS sponsoring departments who have the most intimate knowledge of the program. Next, we're going to discuss the evaluation of the iExcel program. The iExcel Math program is an online learning platform offering 3,500 adaptive, standards-aligned mathematics skills. OCPS began district-wide implementation in 2021 to support Algebra 1 instruction, expanding to geometry in 22-23. In the 24-25 school year, its use expanded to include core mathematics instruction for grades 6 to 12, as well as targeted reading interventions for high school students. This evaluation focuses on the mathematics component of iExcel. The research department, in collaboration with the Curriculum Digital Learning Department, conducted phase 1 of the program evaluation to examine implementation practices and stakeholder perceptions. Data sources include district leader interviews, teacher focus groups and surveys, and usage reports. As of December 9, 2024, a total of 68,518 students were enrolled in at least one secondary mathematics course using iExcel, with 92% of those students having logged into the system. Key findings from this evaluation. Findings number 1. Based on the findings from district leader interviews and teacher surveys, 4 major themes emerged across both data sources. Findings number 1, variable implementation. District leaders and teachers reported significant variability in how iExcel was used across classrooms. Although 98% of surveyed teachers indicate they use the program, weekly usage ranged widely. 20% of the responded teachers used it for fewer than 15 minutes per week. 24% of teachers used it for 16 to 30 minutes per week. 33% of teachers used it for 31 to 60 minutes per week, and 21% of teachers used it for more than 1 hour per week. Findings number 2, student frustration. Teachers raised concerns regarding student discouragement, particularly when incorrect answers require additional practice opportunities for students to work toward mastery. Findings number 3, challenges with managing IXL data. IXL provide extensive data on student performance, but both district leaders and teachers noted the need for additional support to help educators effectively analyze and apply this data to inform instructions. Findings number 4, teacher training and access. Variation in teacher usage reported by teachers led to uneven access to IXL among students. Stakeholders emphasized the importance of ensuring all students benefit from this program, regardless of classroom placement. While vendor-led training was well received, teachers indicated limited district-level guidance on effective integration. Alignment with best standards was also inconsistent, particularly for more challenging concepts. Additionally, insights from teacher focus groups include: 1. Teachers suggested adjusting the default 80% proficiency threshold for more difficult skills to better support student motivation. 2. The flexibility to assign targeted skills supported differentiated instruction. 3. Vendor-led professional learning sessions were highly valued for their quality and relevance. Recommendations for this program. Final recommendations for this program will be developed following phase 2 of the evaluation, which will include a quantitative analysis of student outcomes based on year-end FAST assessment and the EOC data. This phase will examine the relationship between implementation fidelity and student performance. Next, I'm going to discuss the evaluation of the Success Maker program. The Success Maker program is a continuously adaptive learning system designed for students focusing on reading and mathematics. It personalizes learning paths in real time, adjusting to each student's specific learning needs. The program provides differentiation for students performing on grade level, intervenes at the just right intensity for students who are not yet at the grade level, and challenges high achievers and gifted students. It delivers outcome-based data to inform educational decision-making and aligns student learning trajectories to the scope and sequence of many core programs. In February and March 2025, OCPS Research Department conducted phase 1 of the Success Maker program evaluation. We collected survey data to understand grades K-5 mathematics teachers' perceptions and needs as they are related to implementing Success Maker math program with fidelity. Key findings from this evaluation. Finding number 1, 82% of surveyed respondents have visited the program supporting website, which offers multiple supports to teachers and those who support program implementation. Findings number 2, 71% of survey respondents participated in school training. Findings number 3, 76% of the teachers have concerns about using the Success Maker math program. The top concerns are: 1, teachers cannot control the lessons students take. 2, the online activities are not engaging to students. 3, it doesn't meet students' needs. 4, they cannot adjust student pacing. Findings number 4, 61% of the responding teachers have observed little to no increase in student confidence since using the program. Findings number 5, 53% of the respondents say students are unable to accomplish the 45-minute per week expected usage. Recommendation for this program. Recommendation number 1, many express the need for longer math block, having dedicated time for the use of computer program like Success Maker, and building time into the math curriculum resource materials. Recommendation number 2, they reported numerous instances of long load time, the program freezing, and difficulty using the program on iPads. Respondents recommended an easier process for logging in and logging off the program. Recommendation number 3, lessons were either too easy or too difficult, and teachers did not know how to adapt the students' level. Respondents suggested there be a second diagnostic or function for re-evaluating students. Recommendation number 4. Respondents shared that the content neither engaging nor user-friendly. The primary recommendation from respondents was that the program include instructions or directions for the students on how to answer the questions. Future directions for this program. This results will provide important context for the phase 2 of the outcome evaluation that will follow this summer, which will examine the program usage data to understand the impact of the program and end-of-year FAST assessment results. I'm going to turn the conversation back to Ben.
Thank you, Dr. Sun. At this point, we can take a look at the current queue of program evaluation.
Can we
which are-
take a little break real quick? Because we have some board members that I think might have some questions. Is that okay?
It's fine. I just have comments about what they've talked about that may answer some of the questions. I forgot, how many more slides do you have? One more, 2?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Is that okay?
Go ahead. Yep, perfect.
So just looking at the programs that are currently in our queue for evaluation, we have the Comprehensive Assessment System, or CAS experts, Collaborative Classroom, also known as CIPS, Edgenuity, IXL Math, which we've talked about today, Pick, Read, Enroll, Read to Succeed, Rosen Preschool and Rosen Post-Secondary programs, Saga Tutoring, Success Maker, Three-Dimensional Education, and the Travel and Leisure Preschool and Post-Secondary programs. Projects are at various different phases in the queue. Some of these are ongoing annual evaluations, some are based on memorandums of understanding, and some come through other channels for request. This time, we'd be happy to turn over the presentation for comments and questions.
Thank you so much. I just want to remind the board that we have evaluations for implementation as well as results. And some of these were for implementation, and some of them you saw or you heard them say they're going to look back at outcome data and tie those two together. So just a couple of comments on them. I'm going to start with Edgenuity. We have already made changes for the upcoming school year with the intent of phasing out almost all of the use of Edgenuity based on not just the feedback from the program evaluation team, but data that we've been monitoring for about 2 years, and then feedback that we've received from it. The phase out process will begin this upcoming school year, where the juniors and seniors will be able to use it this following year, as well as the 7th and 8th graders. And then the year after, it will only be available to the seniors who need it for graduation. At that point, we'll evaluate, again, the numbers, the impact it's having, and we may make the decision to completely eliminate the use of Edgenuity. Second, I want to make comments about both IXL and Success Maker. Both of those entail some technical difficulties that we need to resolve so that teachers are aware of things that they can do as far as adjustments, how to be able to make changes, and that falls on us as far as training. And so we need to do a better job with that and continue to listen to the feedback we're hearing from our teachers, because those that are using, and I'll say IXL because Success Maker I think is still a little bit of a pain point. Remember, we used to do iReady, and you remember the comments about iReady, and so we did an RFP, selected Success Maker with input from teachers, and now we're hearing that maybe iReady wasn't as bad as we were hearing. But we do know it's the beginning stages. People are getting accustomed to it. And so we need to be able to work through that and then, of course, tie it to our data to see, for those that have been using it with fidelity, how the program has been designed to be used. Are they getting the results? And continue to provide support. And the very first one really ties back to impact of professional development. It is so hard to be able to determine the true impact of PD. And one of the things that we look for is, did the skills that you learned at the training transfer into the classroom? And we're seeing mixed reviews with that, with many of our programs, but in particular what we're seeing with some of the reading trainings that we're doing. Most of the participants love the training, but when it comes to then going back and implementing it in your classroom, we need to find out what makes for a successful transition and what are the additional supports that are needed so that our children are benefiting from the instruction from our teachers. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Superintendent. I'm cued in first, and I wanted to ask about the AIM Literacy Institute. And I just want to get some clarification. This is what we are sent, like administrators and teachers to, for the science of reading, right? This is what we used for that training?
That's one of the opportunities that we have for them to gain the knowledge. And I know Dr. Brown Cannon is here if we need more specifics.
And I think I just want to, I'm just trying to understand. So there's other ones. Is this like the same thing that have heard other board members talk about that the Reed Foundation is offering? No.
No. So the science of reading is a broad umbrella, I think is the best way to describe it. And so it is not a program. It's strategies that are research based that we know, if you are used properly, lead to students being able to read, not just on grade level, but with proficiency. So there are various entities that provide training on those skills and strategies. You also sometimes hear about OG, Orton-Gilliam method, that is weaved into some of the training with the science of reading. It's not a standalone, and it has some very specific training tied to specific areas of deficiency. So the individuals or entities that provide the training provide training on the use of those strategies tied to the science of reading that the state has now adopted as the way we will all teach reading in the state of Florida.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And you said that this summer, you're going to be working on looking at the results from the FAST testing on these two programs. So then I'm assuming they'll be coming back and sharing that analysis as well. Okay, perfect. Next, we have Member Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for this presentation. I love that we do this. I love that we look at the programs, we analyze the return on investments, we figure out if it's user-friendly, we do surveys to find out the perception of our teachers and our students, and then we kind of compare it with the data to figure out is it a keeper or if it's something that we should get rid of. So we use, AIM's not the only people that we use for science of reading, correct? Don't we? And science of reading is evidence and research based, so it's like a really good program. And I think we're seeing that in our scores that have come out. Like, I think we've really seen the impact of applying the science of reading in our K through 2. Hopefully we're doing it in pre-K 2 now. That will just continue to grow. So is AIM, who else do we use besides AIM? Because I mean, I know in order to train all of our teachers, it takes more probably than just one company.
Yeah, and we can get the list of the different individuals that we use, and there's also various models that we have adopted, again, in alignment with the state. Some of the trainings are week-long, and teachers will go get the training, try it in their classrooms, and then come back. Others are an entire week. We have some that are train-the-trainer models, where there's a person at the school that is trained. They then go back and train the teachers at the school. But we'll get a list to the board of the different vendors that we use to train on the science of reading.
Are we using the Read Foundation at all for summer training?
Yes, they've been used as well.
Are we using them this summer?
They had an institute, and we had teachers that went. Remember that during the summer, and I may get this confused, during the school year, we typically just pay the substitute and the cost of the training. During the summer, we pay the cost of the training as well as the teachers get a stipend. I believe it might be $125. And so sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to gather those dollars to be able to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And as a reminder, we pay the vast majority of that through Title II dollars, which are on the chopping block, not for this upcoming year, but for the year after. And I know a lot of things can happen in the course of a year, but that is something that our team is looking at and trying to be proactive. If those dollars are not available, how are we going to be able to provide the training to our teachers?
And is the AIM training or any training that we do around the science of reading, is it just for elementary schools? Is AIM predominantly for elementary schools, or do we teach all K through 12 or pre-K through 12?
The science of reading is K through 12. Again, it's strategies.
Okay.
So if you are in K to 2, you're a beginning reader, and so you're learning the skill of how to read. When you then move into 3rd grade and above, then now you are learning to understand what you're reading. However, you still have students in those upper grade levels that have not mastered how to read. And so some of those strategies that are in place at the K through 2 level are also may be applicable in the upper grades for those students that are struggling. And it's been a couple of years since I had my ELA reading hat on, so if I've said anything incorrectly, please come up and correct it.
Thank you, Dr. Vasquez. And what do we have any, and I know money's tight and it's getting tighter, especially with the Title II dollars being on the chopping block, but do we have push-in resources that help our teachers in the classroom to model the teaching that they want to see? Like, do we, because I think one of the key elements to the science of reading, because they do throw a lot at you in 3 or 4 days or a week, and I know you can go back and implement it and then go back for more training, but sometimes the most effective way to really learn how to teach the science of reading is really by someone being in your class and helping you model that. Do we provide that? I know that's going to be a huge undertaking with all the teachers that we have in elementary school, especially K through 2.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. One of the areas that Tashonda started to look at this year and will come to a conclusion, I suspect, by November, December, is the use of our reading coaches, our reading resource teachers at the school level. A few of you visited the school in, was it Marietta City? And so we like that model, and we are looking to see if that transition is something that we can do for the 26-27 school year, especially given what we perceive to be an incredible cut to dollars for professional development. And that would impact not just being able to go to a training, but also many of the resource personnel that we have that are paid out of Title II dollars. And so the idea is, let's take a look at the role of those reading teachers, those reading coaches. What are they doing? How does that compare with what research says is how you get the best bang out of your buck with those resource people? And one of that is exactly what you pointed to. Being able to come in, demonstrate how this skill could be taught using this strategy, having the teacher observe, ask questions, then giving the teacher some time to practice, invite that coach in that then could give them feedback. Yes, you did X, Y, and Z very well. You may want to think about doing this. But that's going to take a little bit of lead time if that's the direction that we move into. But yes, we are definitely looking at that.
Wonderful, thank you. Then Edgenuity. I don't think anybody's going to be shocked by my position that I'm not a fan. I'm glad that we're phasing it out. I just think that since COVID, it's been abused, and I think that everything that was described today proved my point. They can do it way faster. We have so many people that are doing it. Chronic absentee kids are doing it. Like, it's just, as I've said multiple times, Edgenuity in my mind, based on what I know about the program, does not fit within our strategic plan. So I'm glad that we're phasing it out, because I don't know how we justify it when my perception is it does not fall in line with a high quality education. What it does fall in line with is getting kids to graduate, and why that's admirable. And there are some kids that need this. There are some kids that are struggling, maybe with their health at home, with family's health. There are incidences where this could be beneficial and help a student succeed. I think by far and large it's been abused by students. And I don't think I don't think those that are using it that can complete a year-long course in several weeks are getting a high-quality education, nor do I believe that they are taking that knowledge and are being able to use that knowledge or apply that knowledge, whether they go into the military, into a job, or into college. They just don't. They're going to have to relearn it. And we're not doing them any favors. We're hurting students by allowing this to happen. And if you talk to teachers, I haven't spoken to not one teacher that didn't laugh and say, do you know how often they cheat? Do you know how much cheating is going on in Edgenuity? So I get that we offered it during COVID as a way to help students, and I think that was admirable. I still struggle, and I've said it from the dais before, I still struggle with only 55% past 10th grade ELA, and yet we jumped to an over 90% graduation rate. So I have to question, A, what are those kids giving up to be able to graduate? What are we doing to help them graduate? And are we really offering a high quality education and inspiring and engaging students, which is part of our strategic plan? And if the answer is no to any of those questions, then I think any program that we utilize should be on the chopping block. Even if the data is there, if it does not serve our strategic plan, we simply shouldn't have it in our schools. And then IXL, I know that we have some data. I know that we're waiting on the FAST scores, but come on, y'all. We already kind of know what those FAST scores are. The reason for the FAST is that we can see them quickly. So we should be able to analyze already if IXL is a return on investment based on the feedback just from the teachers having issues with it, them not being able to look at the data easily and analyze it to then reconstruct or redirect instruction bothers me. So again, I mean, I know that you're looking at the data, and maybe the data for geometry and algebra shows that there is an increase of a pass rate when we use IXL, but if we can't fix some of the problems within it, then again, I'm going to challenge the district to kind of really look at that program and see if there's something else better that might be more useful to our teachers and better for our students. And then on Success Maker, I didn't see one positive thing come out of Success Maker. Students don't like it. Students don't feel engaged. Teachers don't like it. They don't, and I get that some of that may be the training aspect from it. It may be their need. I would also say that some of these teachers have already done Success. My kids did Success Maker when they were in elementary school, and those teachers are still in our system right now teaching elementary school. So some of our teachers already have tons of experience with Success Maker. So if it's not working and the kids don't like it, and I can tell you that my daughter used to Christmas tree it. They told me she was going to flunk the FCAT in 3rd grade based on her Success Makers because she didn't care, because it was boring and she didn't like doing it. She ended up getting 2 4s, by the way, on her FCAT that year. So Success Maker, at least for my daughter, was not a very good indicator of how she was going to perform on the standardized test, just due to the lack of engagement and just she hated it. So I don't know. I think we may need to look at Success Maker. We can look at the results. Again, we already have those results. We should know if it's working or not. And I know that we have a huge emphasis on that 30-minute intervention, and we only have 30 minutes. And teachers are really being held to the fire on that 30-minute intervention. And if we're using part of it on Success Maker and there's glitches, the kids aren't getting anything out of it, then I have to question if it's useful. And would it be better to do small groups and maybe pull in resources for those kids that are struggling versus putting them on Success Maker? We know for a fact, based on being in Marietta, Georgia, that people over programs is more successful and the results are higher. So again, I'm not liking the results that we got from our teachers about Success Maker. So I really think that that should be something that we look at and determine if we should still be using it. I mean, we have issues with chronic absenteeism, and the biggest thing we hear from students on why they don't come to school is they don't feel engaged, it's boring, they don't like it. I dare you to find me a child who likes the Success Maker. If you do, then I'll back off. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Member Gallo. Member Vanos?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just start with some questions I had on AIM, and if I missed this, I apologize. Is this an in-person training or an online training?
Thanks, Ms. Vano. So I can share, I personally completed the AIM Institute just because I wanted to reacquaint myself with the skills I had hoped to attain in my elementary education degree. And, I would applaud the AIM Institute for the rigor that was within the trainings. It was online training. However, we had a facilitator. So there were some sessions online where we all engaged at the same time. And I would almost consider that facilitator like an accountability partner who kept us matriculating through the course, which I think is why you see the high completion rates that were with it. And so I felt like the rigor of the training I received in the AIM Institute was high quality and prepared me, refreshed my skills to be versed in the science of reading and to be able to have those discussions and look at the different components of reading and the data to see where our students were struggling.
Okay, thank you for that. That's really helpful to hear. I appreciate that. You when you were talking about that program, you said that most of the people, I guess teachers, educators take one course. How many courses comprise the program? Is it just a one-course program, or are there several?
So I'll let Xiaozhang add on that, but there are different components of the training, Ms. Vanos, that you can take. There's different levels. So, there's the points that you need for reading, the reading training required by the state, which is fulfilled through one course, which for me took several months to complete. Certainly not something you would sit down in one setting or two. There's a lot of reading to do in between. There's assignments to complete and then discussions to engage upon. But there are other courses you can take from the AIM Institute as well. So Dr. Sun, do you want to build on that?
Dr. Border, what you said is correct. There are different levels of courses so that both administrators and teachers can benefit from learning the science of reading.
Okay, so when you say one course, that could actually be they've taken something over the course of several months. It's not that they did a 1 hour thing and it's one and done and that's it.
Yeah. No, it was several months, Ms. Vanos, and there was scheduled engagements where kind of like the cohort that you were assigned to for the AIM Institute, you would gather online, your facilitator would facilitate a discussion, you would come to that prepared. And so, it went on for several months, and the rigor was certainly, it was a high level rigor that really inundated you deep into the different components of reading.
Okay, thank you. How much does it cost?
We'll follow up.
Okay. And then are there any, it sounds like this actually is a good training program, but so I'm just asking this, are there other I'm a big supporter of science of reading. I love that we're pushing into our schools in every way. I know we mentioned READ, which I know does some good training. Are there any institutes or groups or universities that also provide training at a lower cost or free?
We'll get back to the board, Ms. Vanos, on all the offerings that we have within OCPS, and then we'll also dovetail onto that, your question about other options and costs.
Okay, I appreciate that. I do think, I think it's important to have a variety. I'm not suggesting that we just adopt one program, but it would be good just to see what is out there that's free or maybe lower cost, and just, so I appreciate you putting that together, so thank you. Okay, with respect to the other three, I honestly, I'm glad that we're going to do an outcomes evaluation, but from what I've seen from your analysis and what I hear from other board members, I really don't understand why we're spending money on these things. Edgenuity, I feel like it's all been said. I agree with what's been said. I guess one follow-up question I have for Edgenuity is how do we pay for that? Is that per student, by course, by completion rate, by school? How do we pay for Edgenuity?
We'll get you the cost, but it is a fee that we pay, and because of the size of our district, the rate is less than if you paid by per pupil, but we'll get you the amount. And it's paid out of general funds, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so if we're paying by district, then it doesn't really matter how many, I mean, it's not a per student, just however many students use it, it doesn't really matter, or?
Because of the number of students that participate, we have a rate that does not limit the number of students, if my memory serves me right. If we were to drop below that threshold, then we would be paying a different price.
Okay.
So let's say if you hit 2,000 students and above, this is what you pay. If you drop below 2,000, this is what you're paying.
Okay, got it, thank you. I would be curious to take a look at that. And then also, as a follow-up for the Edgenuity, do we ever actually, when a student completes a course, do we have any ability to determine what they actually learned? Or is it just they complete the course and they graduate? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, so completing the Edgenuity course, Ms. Vanos, would satisfy the credits that they need for the course. I would say that depending on where they're at, if you're talking about a freshman or a sophomore that's completing a course in, say, mathematics, they're going to go on to other mathematics courses where the learning of that material is going to be tested within the other course that they're taking once they've earned the credit for the course that they might have failed previously.
Okay, but we don't actually have any information about it.
We didn't evaluate any information. Okay. There may be teachers who do that when students come back, but it was not part of our evaluation.
Okay, a lot of what I was also going to ask has been said, so I'll just. I think my concern is, how much money are we spending on these programs that honestly, it seems like nobody, I'm not sure it's really worth it. And then I would say the follow-up is some of the concerns that were raised that maybe that you showed, like how we could improve these programs, involves investing even more into them. It involves additional resources, additional people, and additional help. And so at some point, I just question whether it's all worth it. Or we have programs that people seem to not like, but then why would we put more money into supporting them? So that's just sort of my overall feedback. But thank you for the analysis and presentation.
Yeah. We appreciate the questions. Thanks, Ms. Vanos.
Thank you. Member Salamanca.
Thank you. I wanted to speak to Edgenuity. I think we're all on the same page. I don't think it does what it's supposed to do in terms of outcomes and students being prepared to graduate. I there's a difference between checking the box and actually being ready to live like after graduation, and I'm not sure that other students are getting that from Edgenuity. So on the same page with my fellow board members. For IXL Math, I disagree. I can fill a room full of students that love IXL Math. Love it. When we were doing cuts last summer and we took IXL Math from middle school, I had so many parents and students emailing me saying IXL is like the only engaging tool that my like son and daughter use. I spoke to you all when we did the debrief on this. I understood that this was an overview of just the implementation, and there is a lot of discrepancy and variance on implementation, which is my biggest concern. I do think it's an effective tool. I think teachers use it very differently. How many hours a week they use it is very different. And the other is that if we're only measuring hours a week in the classroom, I think we're missing the point, because a lot of the students that I've spoken to who are very advanced in math say that some of their best teachers use this as a supplemental tool for practice after school and outside of school. And so in class, you only have limited amount of time to go deep into any mathematical topic. And IXL Math is a place where they go down the rabbit hole and try different and get feedback, and students actually master the content. And so they actually really learn from it if they engage with it. My issue with IXL Math is that some teachers use it in the classroom, 20 minutes, 10 minutes. Some teachers use it 60 minutes. Some teachers don't use it at all, but they do use it as homework assignments and say, please go and like spend more time with this. And I don't know how we're going to measure outcomes if we're only taking into account the teachers in the classroom. Because I actually think that some great teachers are using it outside of the classroom. It's just not going to be captured in classroom hours, which is one of the metrics that we use.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ms. Salamaga. We can look at the design of the next program evaluation to see in our discussions with students if that's something we can look at, that supplementary piece. And so we appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, but the design of IXL Math is actually engaging. So if like you just play around with it, anyone up here who doesn't like math, I promise you IXL Math, pretty good. It's a really good user interface. And I heard it from students. I can't speak to the outcomes, right? I don't know what the numbers are, so I can't speak to that today. But I think the one takeaway I have is IXL Math implementation is high variance. And I'm not, depending if it's good or not, I don't know if that's good or bad, but I have only heard good things. When we tried to cut it for middle school math, I heard loud and clear from parents and students that that was the wrong thing to do.
Thanks,
you.
Ms. Salamanca.
Thank you, Member Salamanca. Member Douglas.
Thank you so much for your Thank you for your presentation, by the way. Thank you so much. It's been very insightful about the different programs. I'm not very familiar with AIMS, but I have taught Success Maker, and I really didn't like it. I'm a reading teacher. AIMS, I'm not very familiar with AIM program, but I have seen the books in the classroom several times when I've been in different schools. There's a program I just wanted to talk to you about that, really helped my student as a intensive reading. It was Reading Plus. I don't know, Reading Plus was really rigorous, and it gave feedback to the kids. It was user-friendly. It was correcting their mistakes. And really, it was, to me, the best layout program that I have seen, that students, even at home, could correct themselves and make it better. And it was so rigorous that if they were not reading, they were losing points during the week. So it was great for me because he helped me push the kids to read every single week. They had to. They had no choice. They were coming at me at the beginning, oh, Miss, we don't like this program, we have to read. Okay, that's okay. But at the end of the year, they were very competitive. They wanted those points, and it was wonderful. And then it was gone. So why don't we use Reading Plus? I don't know, okay? But that's, that was one of the programs that I enjoy as intensive reading.
May I?
Yes.
We do use Reading Plus in grades 3 through 8. the team can follow up as to why it's not being used at the high school level. And I want to double check Success Maker math, correct? So it's not used for reading, it's just for math.
I mean, Success Maker, I have taught it when I taught elementary through high school. I'm just saying, I didn't mention it was math, but yes. And also Ingenuity, oh my goodness, yes. I share the sentiment here about Ingenuity, seriously. I mean, I have seen a kid that never came to school, not one day of school, and walk at graduation. I'm like, what? And I know why. I know why he was there. But anyway, it was really shocking. Just wanted to say that I do appreciate IXL. I have taught IXL as well, and I really liked it. I really did like it. It helped me as a math teacher when I was doing elementary school, so it was good. So that's just all my opinion about all these programs. Success Maker, no.
Thanks, Ms. Douglas.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Member Felder.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add, my sentiments are basically the same with my other board members, but I wanted to interject with regards to, excuse me, Ingenuity. I think with my experience as a teacher, it's more beneficial for the one-to-one engagement, and I know we all know that, with teacher to student. And even though Ingenuity did what it needed to do in terms of graduation rates, but making sure a student really understands the content. And then also, when we implemented Ingenuity at such a grand rate, so many teachers did not have the opportunity for summer employment, and that was my concern also. But because of my experience as a teacher, I know there's something that happens to you as a teacher when you have been working on a concept, and all of a sudden the light goes on, and the student, they got it. It does something for you. So I'm glad that we are reevaluating Ingenuity. It was good for what we needed it for, but I'm happy that you've presented us with the data, and we can reconsider looking at Ingenuity. I just wanted to let you know I appreciate your work, but from a teacher's perspective, I think the one-on-one is always better. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Felder. And that is it for our board members' comments. I believe we're done, Superintendent,
Part of
with
it,
this part?
yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all for
Yeah,
your hard
great
work.
Thank you.
comments.
We
and we'll-
appreciate it.
And the team will follow up via email with some of the information the board members requested. Thank you, guys. All right. We're doing very well on time.
How about that? And we all spoke, too. They're
All right.
Amazing.
Now we have Sarah Kopesky, who is coming up, and I've just drawn a blank. Carla Owens, thank you, from Student Services. They are bringing to you the policy on student progression plan. We, every year, review this policy primarily based on legislation that impacts our policy. But in addition to that, we take comments and feedback that the board and the schools have given us throughout the year. So I am going to turn it over to Ms. Kopesky, and she will begin the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Vasquez. Good morning, board. Good to see everyone today. As Dr. Vasquez stated, we are going to be reviewing policy IA, the student progression plan, as well as the student progression plan handbook. We have met with board members over the past several weeks reviewing some of the changes. However, you may see some differences from our individual meetings that we have incorporated either by recommendations from cabinet, legislative changes that maybe came through after we met with you, or possibly answering questions and we went back and made some changes. So we are going to go through each individual change today. As we go through, you may see some red lines that we don't stop and review during this presentation, and that's only because it's either a formatting change, grammatical error, possibly we just reworded something to make it more better to understand for our readers. So with that, I'm going to start with the policy, and then I will turn it over to Ms. Owens for the handbook. The first change you're going to see is going to be under the criteria for student reading proficiency in kindergarten through grade 3. The policy basically outlines what needs to be in the student progression plan. So we had to add in there that this includes students who have been referred to OCPS from a voluntary pre-kindergarten education program. That's added pursuant to section 1008.25. Florida statute, which was updated last year by Senate Bill 7004. However, that bill didn't come into effect until after we went through the rulemaking process, so we're adding it this year to be in compliance, although it's something we've already been doing. And then the second change also came through by the same bill, so it added an update to section 1008.25, which is the student progression plan statute. And the addition states we're going to specify retention requirements for students in kindergarten through grade 2 based upon each student's performance in English language arts and mathematics, which again we already have in the progression plan handbook, and that the parent guardian must be notified for reading and mathematics deficiencies as outlined in section 1008.25. In addition, the parent guardian must be provided with the opportunity to provide input on the retention decision. The OCPS progression plan must also include importance of students mastering early literacy and communication skills in order to be reading at or above grade level by the end of grade 3. So again, a lot of this is already in our progression plan. It's just aligning the policy with the statute. And if something wasn't in the progression plan, we did go back and add it in. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Owens to present the handbook.
Good morning. We'll start on page 6 of the handbook. The first part is the introduction, where there were several changes made. Most of them were recommended for an update. For example, the first sentence includes an alignment with the OCPS 2030 strategic plan. We're ensuring every student graduates prepared, inspired, and empowered for a thriving future. We also made some updates based on recommendations to wording as well on page 6. Moving to page 9, we changed the report cards from a chart to a bulleted list just for ease of reading and understanding. And then also we updated the grading scales for our kindergarten through grade 12 students. This includes, of course, clarifying the meanings of O, S, W, N, and U for each category. And then also there is an addition of grades 2 through grade 5 were moved to the end of the chart to make the chart easier to read. There is also a recommendation to remove the scale scores for academic, personal, social, and special area courses for OSNU, as they may not be numerical equivalents. This is all added on the next page, as you can see on page 10 at the top. And then it also adds, of course, we added the percentage symbols. We also, on page 10, right in the middle, we added the comment about the unweighted grading scale. We moved it from the bottom of the chart to the top of the chart just for ease of understanding. And then on page 11, you'll see that we clarified advanced placement, International Baccalaureate IB, and also Advanced International Certificate of Education, which is Cambridge Advanced courses. And then also added the addition of Cambridge ACE, which refers to the Cambridge Diploma. So therefore, Cambridge Advanced references Cambridge courses, and Cambridge ACE refers to Cambridge Diploma. and this will be seen throughout the document. On page 12, we added a few course codes for the EOC assessments. We added AP pre-algebra, as you can see, that has its own category. And then we also added the access points courses for those that are participating in EOC assessments and these state assessments as well. We updated the EOC assessments and grades. That's throughout the middle of the page, just to make it easier to understand. And that includes, of course, also adding in the FAA performance task measures and then the FAA data folio assessment. On page 13, we added an explanation of those two assessments of the FAA performance task and the FAA data folio. Primarily, the FAA performance tasks are used to help levels that are at 3 levels of complexity, and the results are reported through achievement levels. And the data folio is designed to address the needs of a small population of students who typically do not have a formal mode of communication and may be working at pre-academic levels. This section is also added to the ESE section in the handbook. On page 14, we removed grade 5 from the CFE portion of this assessment because grade 5 does not include CFEs where a final grade is calculated. It is only through grades 6 through 12. In the middle of page 14, under credits, grades of students who transferred to OCPS, we added the clarification, this was updated in the statute, that if a student does not possess an official transcript or is a home education or personalized education program student, the personalized education program student is what was added to the statute. On page 15, we also made some clarifications. We added when grade forgiveness, where grade forgiveness may occur for a high school student who receives a D or F in a full or semester course. Excuse me. Page 16, what we did is updated the assessment names because there were some clarifications that we needed to make sure we clarified, explained, and then we also added, of course, the progress monitoring piece for the pre-K students who take the Fast Start early literacy. On page 17, we updated the progress monitoring plan for criteria. We wanted to make sure that we were in line with the statute. You'll see clarification, for example, grounded in the science of reading, that was added, making sure that we added math instruction, and also, of course, making sure that we have the comprehensive evidence-based reading plan added. At the bottom of page 17, we also added what was updated in statute, which is pre-kindergarten who have a substantial reading deficiency in early literacy and students in kindergarten through grade 3. So this adds, of course, the research-based resources as well. On page 18 is the same as well. On page 18 is also adding the pre-kindergarten who have substantial deficiency in early mathematics. On page 19, we just added, of course, to make sure we were in line with statute when it comes to saying that the student's attendance and conduct record, which is exactly what is said in statute, rather than the student's discipline record. On page 20, we have a couple of additions. We wanted to make sure that we modified winter and spring instead of saying December and May, excuse me, for the EOC assessments for those who are taking acceleration opportunities and are going through the Excel program, because we don't know exactly when those assessments are taking place. So it could be, of course, any month within that, any of those months. So we changed it to winter and spring. At the bottom of page 20 is something that's new. We removed the maximum allowance for credit hours under IB. You'll also see this again as well for ACE. So students now do not need a maximum number they can earn more than what's required here. So they can be awarded as many credits as possible. On page 21, we have just some clarifications where we added, of course, the Cambridge Advanced courses, and then we also removed the maximum allowance of credit hours under Cambridge. On page 22, we added clarification of the DE courses that are taken outside of OCPS or do not have an articulation agreement. We stated that, of course, if a student does take a DE course outside of OCPS or the articulation, or there is no articulation agreement, that the student may not have that count towards their GPA, but may get a credit for it, depending on whether there is an equivalent course to award credit for that DE course. At the top of page 23, we added an explanation of the AP capstone for the high school option. This, of course, the AP capstone is an explanation of the program, as well as acceleration opportunities, post-secondary credits, and the potential to get an AP diploma. On page 24, we just updated the magnet opportunities. We removed Orlando Gifted Academy as the type of magnet and moved it to the school itself, which is Orlando Gifted Academy, and left the type of magnet Gifted Academy. That is also done, for example, for middle school as well, and then we added program to Middle Years International Baccalaureate on page 24. On page 26, we just modified it for better understanding. And then page 27, we also, of course, included some clarification that the handbook provides information as it pertains to progression of students with disabilities within OCPS and not Orange County, Florida. And I'm going to let Ms. Kopesky take over with the rest of section 2.
Okay. Excuse me. So the next section you'll see under the students with disabilities is in regards to the accommodations that students can receive on statewide standardized assessments. So we were asked to clarify basically the types of accommodations they can receive and how they can get paper-based testing. I believe when we first met with some of you, I may have misspoke, so I would just want to clarify this so that way you have this knowledge. For a paper-based test, if a student with an IEP or 504 requires paper-based testing, but no modifications to the paper-based portion, so they don't need larger font, they don't need Braille, they don't need one item per page, but just the test printed out, so long as the IEP team documents that they need that in their IEP and they clearly indicate the reason for the computer-based test, for the computer-based test not being appropriate for the student. They utilize that in the classroom throughout the year, implementing that same accommodation, showing that the student can succeed. Then we request the paper base from the DOE, and they send it to us. For any other accommodation that's not allowable on a statewide standardized assessment, so something where they would have to modify the actual assessment, so again, large print, Braille, something like that that's not already identified by the DOE as being permitted, then we have to apply for what's called a unique accommodation. That has to be applied for 60 days before the administration of the test, and then that goes to the Commissioner of Education for final approval. So anything where they modify the test, the Commissioner of Education or designee actually has to approve. We don't have any control over that. We are also going to include a link here to the statewide assessments accommodations guide that's issued by the DOE, which is actually a pretty extensive document that has 3 to 4 pages of accommodations actually listed that students can utilize so long as it's in their IEP and they are using it during the school year. So there will be a link there so parents can go through and see the things that are available for students. And then throughout the waiver of the statewide standardized assessment section, there was references in here to it has to be a senior or they have to meet the course requirements for a standard high school diploma. That is not in statute, and so we remove that language. Basically, in order to receive a waiver for a student with disabilities, they have to take the assessment, the 10th grade ELA assessment and the Algebra 1 EOC at least once. So as long as they take it at least once, then they can be considered by their IEP team for the waiver. They do not have to be a senior or meet the graduation requirements, which is why this section was updated. And then we also added in information on the extraordinary exemption for students with disabilities. This is something that's already been in place. It just wasn't in the progression plan previously, and we thought it would be good to add it here for the parents looking for that. And this is for students that are prevented by either circumstance or condition, and you'll see at the bottom that we define these terms as listed in statute. But they're prevented from physically demonstrating mastery of skills measured in taking the statewide standardized assessment, EOC, or the Florida alternative assessment. They may be provided with an extraordinary exemption. Those all have to go to the superintendent with all of this information that's detailed herein, and then that goes to the Commissioner of Education for final approval. So these kiddos may have some sort of physical disability that prevents them from taking the test or would not show mastery of the subject area and instead would more focus on their disability. And then, or it could be for a student that requires some sort of accommodation that the DOE hasn't thought of yet. And so they have to, they're not able to take the test because they can't have that specialized accommodation. And here for transition plannings for post-secondary education and career opportunities for students with disabilities, we added in that when they have this transition plan meeting, which starts in 7th grade or when the student turns 12, whichever occurs first, they're going to talk about post-secondary goals, but they're also going to talk about their high school graduation and how they're going to get there. So are they going to take the 18 credit option? Are they going to do the 24 credit option? Are they going to do a workforce program? So they're going to include that stuff on the student's IEP. And then the second paragraph, you'll notice that the certificate of completion is removed. That was removed by very recent legislation, House Bill 1105, which was approved by the governor on May 30th, 2025. The certificate of completion was for students who met the credit requirements, the 18 or 24 credit hours, but did not either meet the assessment requirements, which is passing the 10th grade ELA, passing the Algebra 1 EOC, or they did not meet the 2.0 GPA requirement. So the certificate of completion is not a high school diploma. It did allow students to walk across the stage at graduation. However, it is not equivalent to a high school diploma. Within the bill 1105, the DOE is required to create a list that they will share with school districts as to additional options that students have in order to meet high school graduation requirements. However, that's not required to be provided to school districts until the end of January 2026. And so you'll notice later on in this progression plan, we've actually created our own list. And so we'll go through that. And then, of course, when the DOE comes out with something, we'll definitely add those things next year. But we definitely wanted families to know that there are additional options. And so those will be included in the student progression plan as well. And I think, and then we also, as Ms. Owens stated earlier, we added in information regarding the 2 different Florida alternative assessments, which is the FAA performance task and the FAA data folio. And those are for our students who are on modified curriculum, which is access points. And this portion right here is just added to align with section 1003.5716 Florida statutes regarding transition planning, which we discussed earlier, was just how they're going to get through high school and then post-secondary planning. And again, the removal of certificate of completion is also in this section. And I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Owens to review the ELL section.
So on page 35, we have a couple of changes made based on the recommendation by the multilingual department. We added some clarification for when an ELL committee will develop a plan, and also just spelling out a couple of acronyms that we had there, English for speakers of other languages. We also reworded a couple of things for clarification. On page 36, we added, based on the recommendation by the multilingual department, to make sure that we added the retention considerations for ELL students. This has been outlined before, but we wanted to make sure it was clear. We also, at the top of page 36, I forgot to mention that we changed the wording so it was clear as students who cannot be considered for retention who have a due date where it's less than 2 years. And then also at the in the middle of page 36, we talk about the extension of the ELL services and clarify when that takes place and who receives that. On page 37, we added the graduation pathways for ELL students. This is for students who are in an ESOL program with less than 2 years. They've met all requirements for the standard high school diploma except for the passage of the grade 10 ELA assessment. So there are 4 different pathways that they can take to satisfy that requirement. On page 39, towards the end, we added a comment about, a line about students who have been homeschooled must complete the final full semester at the student zone school and meet all graduation requirements to participate in OCPS graduation activities and receive an OCPS high school diploma. That was recommended by academic services so that students will, of course, have enough time to be enrolled in the school and then also take the necessary assessments. I skipped a comment too. Also, in the middle of page 39, we wanted to make sure that home ed parents knew exactly the location of their test is determined by OCPS, not necessarily where they want to go. And then that was the comment about page 39 about the academic services, of course, preventing home education students from enrolling right away. Page 44? Mm-hmm. Okay. On page 44, we're at the elementary section in reading deficiency. We added explanation and wording to align to the statute to make sure it was clear and understandable, and then, of course, the pre-K student information as well. At the bottom of page 44, we added the information based on legislation this past year, where the parent or guardian may request a meeting with the student's teacher and school administrator to discuss the student's process and whether more frequent notification of the student's progress and/or more frequent interventions or supports are needed. We also added at the top of page 49 that OCPS students in pre-K through grade 5 rather than just grade K through 5.
Sorry, you said 45?
Oh, 45, excuse me. will receive their coordinated screening progress monitoring for ELA at the beginning, middle, and end of the school year. That aligns, of course, to the statute. On page 46, we updated the statute when it comes to math, students with math deficiency. There are a couple of things that we added based on new legislation. We added information about the student's ability for the New World Scholarship account, as well as the New World's tutoring program. And then we also added after the initial notification, schools will inform the parents or guardians at least monthly of the student's progress in response to the interventions and supports that the student receives. This, we are, of course, in the process of making a new process for that so that it will be monthly. Okay, we're speeding right along to high school. Section 5, page 54. At the top, we added the requirements, a short summary of the 3 requirements needed for a standard high school diploma. We added that at the top of the chart on page 54. You'll also see it at the top of the chart on page 56 as well. But before we get there, I wanted just to also direct your attention to page 55, where we added a hyperlink for the additional options for high school students to earn a standard high school diploma or equivalent. That's part of the section that we added that Ms. Kopesky was referring to earlier.
Can you go back? The removal of the online requirement.
Oh, excuse me. Yes. At the bottom of page 54, we removed the online course requirement as it's no longer needed. That was removed based on statute. On page 56, the requirements needed for a high school standard diploma is also there at the top of the chart. We also added, based on HB 1105, the completion of 2 years of marching band can satisfy the requirement of performing arts or physical education, but not both. And that is added in the chart on page 56. On page 57, we have that addition of that new section of the additional options for high school students to earn a standard high school diploma. And we also, of course, added just clarification of wording and the removal of the certificate of completion. On page 58, we added information about concordant versus comparative scores and who qualifies or what qualifies for a concordant and comparative score. It was recommended that we also provide the actual scores. What we did was we added a link to the scores because we know that scores, of course, do change from year to year. The top of page 59, we removed the certificate of completion. And on page 60, we just aligned the wording to meet the statute, where it says parent guardian notice and annual reporting of progress. Okay. 63? 62. 62, we added, of course, the addition of the Advanced International Certificate of Education, the ACE, was added because that was approved by the governor under House Bill 1105. And this is in addition to satisfying the requirement for the Florida Seal of Fine Arts. On page 63, this is the additional options for high school students to earn a standard high school diploma or equivalent. What we did was we added different avenues, different options for students to participate in, of course, earn their high school diploma or an equivalent. This is in light of the certificate of completion being removed. High school students can do these things, as well as if there's anything else that comes out in January, we will add that as well. Okay, moving to page 68. We added the minimal requirements for the Bright Future Scholarship. We added that at the middle of page 68 for you, or for parents to see. There is one comment on page 68 about the GPA requirement. The GPA requirement is not in the statute. However, the individual scholarship listed above requires a specific GPA, so we went ahead and added it here for the minimal requirements for the scholarship. On page 72, we added, based on CTE, some information and deleted some information as well when it comes to updating their programs. It was recommended by CTE to remove the LCP, which will no longer be used as a method to obtain measurable skill gains. LCPs were a state-created unit of measurement established for the purposes that are no longer intended for determining learning gains. We also removed language as it is not part of the new testing series adopted by Orange Technical College. On page 73, we added information again from CTE. The basic skills requirement is only required for courses that are 450 or more hours. Therefore, courses under 450 hours would not be required for the basic skills requirement. And then we also updated the information under GED to align with statute, which is section 1003.435. On page 74, we removed and added we removed the bulleted section. Recommended by CTE to remove this section because it aligns with section 1003.435. And this also states now that students aged 16 and 17 no longer have to prove extraordinary circumstances apply. So rather, they just need to provide a formal declaration of intent to terminate school enrollment. So they no longer have to show that there is an extraordinary circumstance to ask for termination of school enrollment. On page 75, we added recommendation by CTE to update and align with the CASA steps for ESOL. This is a state-approved assessment which is used to measure English reading and listening skills for students who want to enroll in an ESOL program. And then the only thing we added in the appendix is an explanation of the Gifted Academy under the magnet school programs because that was not provided earlier. It should have been in both elementary and middle school magnets. I believe that is all.
Thank you.
Every year, this is such a joy for all the changes, but we do appreciate all of the team's efforts to work on this. I know it is a lot, and engaging all the various stakeholders to come to a point where you can bring it to the board, I know is not an easy task. So with that, we are ready to take questions and comments from the board.
Thank you, Superintendent. Yes, I agree that that is quite a task to get all the different departments to give their input, but we really do appreciate it, and I know how hard you guys work on it, and the changes that have been made to it over the last couple years, just for the readability ease, and yes, it's so much better. It's so much easier for parents to navigate, and the links, the live links in it are amazing, so we really do appreciate you. I'm cued in, and my only question was, this is kind of more towards the superintendent, I think, but page 26, where we talk about access to virtual courses during and after the normal school day. I know this has been kind of an ongoing issue, and I keep being reassured that this is being addressed, but then yet I keep hearing parents come to me saying that the schools are telling them they can't take their virtual classes during the school day. So can we just do something, I don't know, highlight that or underline it, or just add it to the opening, like beginning of the school year, things we talk to our principals about again, and just make sure that that message is getting clear, and maybe even figure out a way to make sure parents know, because oftentimes parents will say to me, well, I'm not allowed to do that. And I'm like, no, yes, you are, but they don't know that they are. So maybe we just need to make that more clear to parents that these are options that we offer.
Great point. And I really want to give kudos to Dr. Armbruster, who has been persistent in messaging, and I think it has gotten a lot better. We're at the point now that if we continue to see that, we're going to take a different action with respect to whether it's the administrator or if it's the counselor that's giving misinformation, because between Carla, Mary, and the team meeting with the APIs and the counselors, and Dr. Armbruster communicating directly with principals and Pels and Els, the message is out there. Now we are going to take that as a deliberate action to not follow our process. But I do think it's a great idea that we put something together that we can send out to all of our high school families, and they can then, if there is, maybe it's a new counselor, or maybe it's someone that's new to the school and isn't aware in that position, that they can then show, yes, this is something that does allow me to do that. I know it's difficult because they lose FTE, but the reality is the parents have that choice. And the other piece is that we are really trying to push OCVS over FLVS so that we are able to keep them within the OCPS family. And so that's also an initiative that Greg Moody and his team have been working on this last semester, and will continue for the upcoming year. But I love the suggestion of something out to our families.
Thank you. And along that same note, and I was planning on bringing this up in communication meeting, but yesterday at home I received a flyer, a mailer. It was about a half-page size, and it was for a private school, private religious school in my area. And it was a beautiful mailer, front and back, and showed all the options this private school offered. Look at what we're offering in your area. So something like that might be a great idea too, as we talk about how we're marketing to our community. But I often feel like parents just, it's such a struggle for them to know all the options that are available. So maybe we do send out, mailers like this to our community saying, look at what we're offering. We have flexibility. Your child has flexibility in the way they can learn, what they can learn, different programs they can do. Look at the programs in your area that we offer. I just think that it's not only great for information, but also for, of course, sharing all the good news. Next up, we have Member Felder.
Thank you, Chair. Just in what you just said, we have already kind of talked about the fact that the PR for our schools, we do the last board meeting that I attended, and we gave all of those wonderful awards out to those students and what they were doing. I agree with you, Board Member Byrd. I don't think a lot of parents, family know all of the extensive opportunities that we have in OCPS and the fact that we are a public school district. And a lot of the things that we offer, you can't get it unless you're in public schools. And I think that's important. I'm going to keep ringing that bell constantly, reminding people this is a good thing. So let me just, I'm not going to get on the soapbox, but I just want to just say a couple of things, my thoughts. Bill 1105. And I need to just get some clarity, make sure I'm clear so when I talk to my constituents. Now, adults can work on a job for 10 years and get some type of retirement or something, some kind of acknowledgement that you have done this for 10 years. Children go to school for 12 years. And if they can't pass a test, or they're having struggles with the academic schedule that they're having, and they can no longer get a certificate of completion. Now, am I correct in saying that? Okay, now, that's too bad. And I know we talked about some alternatives, the CTE programs, career programs, which is a wonderful idea for them, but suppose that's not what they're interested in doing. And I don't know what we can do because this is about to be into, is it already in the law? Is it going to be in law by July? It's already in law.
July 1st.
July 1st, yeah. Be in law July 1st. I know for a fact a lot of parents don't understand that. They don't know that. They're not, it's some teachers, because I was at a breakfast and I was sharing this information, and they were like, what about access points? And I said to them that that's something you need to write your legislator, or you need to go to Tallahassee. You need to, come to board meetings so you can hear us explain really what is going on with the laws and the statutes that are being passed. I think that's just not good. But I can't, without saying something that's offensive. That's ugly. That whole situation, that children are not able to get a completion. I hate that. I really do. Also, I am happy about the children with ELL, that the fact that if they have not been here so many years, they have had an opportunity to master the language. Let me tell you something. I have my children that can speak Creole, Spanish, and English, and they maybe came here 5 years ago. Their parents came here speaking no English, and in 10 years' time, they're functioning and they can speak English. I mean, it's a lot to learn a foreign language. I'll never forget my experience in Taiwan. And I was looking at the street signs, and everything was in symbols. And I said, if these people put my little black self out of this car, I can't tell nobody where I am. You understand me? Because I was on a Black Diva, with my group. So I'm like, it's difficult to learn another language. And when the children come over and parents come, I'm happy that we have this in place for them, because it doesn't have anything to do with their academia. They just don't know the language. So I'm glad that is in place. And I don't need to sing her praises, but I'm very proud of our superintendent. She was 6 years old coming over here crying the first day of school on the steps because she was so uncomfortable not knowing the language. Now she's the superintendent of a district that's 4th in the state, 8th in the nation. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm glad that is in place. And thirdly, I need to make sure, okay, when the students are being homeschooled, am I to understand that they have to come, is it a semester in the homeschool or a year? What is it?
So currently, we have it in the progression plan as a full semester. However, we were hoping the board would have a discussion on that. The rule says that they have to be here at least 90 days before the administration of the assessment. That could be beginning of January. It might be December. And so in discussions, we were considering, should we extend that to a full year?
Okay, let me just express myself. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I just want to get some clarity.
Absolutely.
Let me just put out there my position, a year. Because students who have been coming to school, they have been taking the test, they've been involved in the academic rigor, and then all of a sudden you come and now you want to maybe be considered as valedictorian or salutatorian because you've made all A's, but you have not participated in the rigor in public education that will afford you the opportunity to have the position of valedictorian. And I may be standing alone, it doesn't matter. I think it should be a year. Certainly not less than a semester. That is my idea, because I think with the efforts that we put in public education, what we do in OCPS, the extraordinary programs. I was educated in OCPS. My mother worked in OCPS and now sit on the board for OCPS. I just can't imagine anything less. So if we have to register a vote, or mine is a year. At least a year, if not a year, certainly not less than a semester. All right, so in closing, again, I thank you for the effort. That's a lot of work y'all did. A lot of work, baby, and I just appreciate it so much. And Chair, I don't think I have anything. If something else come up, I'll hit that button. But thank you.
Thank you, Member Felder. Member Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will echo the sentiments of my fellow board members when I say thank you, because this is quite an undertaking for y'all to do, just keeping up with what's happening in our schools and then checking all the legislative changes that have been made and continue to be made every year. I do have one question, and this may be for Dr. Vasquez. I know in the past we had talked about the disparity between students who are dual enrolled versus students that are in school, especially with those half credits like U.S. government and economics and now financial literacy, because they're counted as one credit, and it's a 6-point credit. So it's hard for those who stay in our schools, take the traditional route, to keep up, and for those who are vying to be in the top 10 to get automatic enrollment in UCF or other schools, or just to be the salutatorian or valedictorian, it's discouraging to them. So have we made any movement on that?
And so nothing has changed since it was brought back up last year. That's not within our purview, and I think I'll defer to Carla. I don't want to make any mistake, but that really is, it's a state level, yes, and we have no control unless the legislation or the rule changes on that.
So since that is out of our control, there are things within our control we could do. Like we could have 2 valedictorians, one that's dual enrolled, one that has the traditional, if that's like, and I know you're shaking your head at me. I know that we finally got away from having 24 valedictorians Winter Park. I'm just joking. It's Stephanie, member of Innocence, next to me. So I was just kidding. I was just kind of.
It was Winter Park with 24 valedictorians.
They did. Not anymore, but yes. Well, because everybody with 4.0, which they have smart kids there. We have smart kids everywhere. But is there something, or at least could we give thought to what we could do internally? Because I feel like that we're encouraging our best and our brightest, and those who really want to be in that top 10, we're basically pushing them out of our schools into dual enrollment, or they're taking so many classes through Florida Virtual and AP classes to try to keep up that they're wearing themselves out. So I just didn't know if we could give some thought to that, what we could do. And it's not, it's not everybody would partake. Not every student wants to be in the top 10 or salutatorian or valedictorian. But for those, I had a friend at East River back before I was school board, and he wanted to be in the top 10 so bad. And he took all AP classes. He passed all the AP tests, and he just wanted to be in the top 10. He fell below the top 10 because after they calculated all the dual enrollments, he couldn't compete. And he didn't have access. It's not like most high schools don't have access to dual enrollment on campus. We don't offer dual enrollment courses on campus unless they take them virtually. Now there is that ability to take them virtually, but for those that's not the way they learn well, it just seems that it's, for me personally, it's an access issue and it's an equity issue. So just food for thought on maybe in the future what we could do to level the playing field.
May I, Madam Vice Chair? We certainly can take a look at any other ways that we could do the recognitions. If you do unweighted, there's more than 10. And so that would take into account those individuals that did not partake of dual enrollment opportunities to level the playing field. Outside of that, I'm not sure what we could do, but we'll look into it. I do want to say that we have vastly expanded access to dual enrollment. And I would probably say the vast majority, if not all, of the students who are in the top 10% of their class have taken an online course. So maybe the ability for us to share more of those opportunities that are available online. I know we just expanded, I think, with Barry University, where all high schools have that opportunity. They're looking to expand that even more so. Outside of that, I'll task the team to look at that, but I just want to be transparent. There's probably not a whole lot because of the grading scale. And that is even across all of the districts in Florida. And I know that maybe some out of state, that's why the different colleges and universities have kind of pulled back from just the weighting. They'll look at the courses that they took and they go beyond just the GPA, which I'm very thankful because they take a look at their involvement, the diversity of their, for lack of a better term, their resume from high school. And that's something that I want to continue to push because that is what the schools are looking at. How are you engaged in your community? What are the things that you're doing? It's more than your GPA. So, but we'll come back to the board either through a public meeting or through an email on what we discover and what other ways we may be able to incentivize some of those or recognize some of those students that have not taken dual enrollment courses.
Thank you, Dr. Vasquez. And maybe it is just communicating with students that they can take them virtually if they choose to during class time at school. I'd be interested to know, like, this has always been an access issue with me for dual enrollment because those who have cars that have the ability to drive to dual enrollment can get there, those that don't can't. And so I was very thankful when virtual came around and it was offered and you could virtually be able to take dual enrollment classes for credit, at the same side. I struggle with virtual classes just due to, are they learning the content? Are they performing well virtually? We saw during COVID that wasn't always the case with our students, that virtually didn't work well for them. So I still worry about access to other programs like dual enrollment if they don't have a way to get there. If you live at Lake Nona and you go to Lake Nona High School, you can walk. But most high schools don't have the ability to walk across to get to Valencia. So I wonder if we should look at Lake Nona's grades to see if that's why they do so well, is because of the students' ability to walk to Valencia. Maybe we need to look at that. And then I'm joking. Look, I'm going to get tons of emails from the Lake Nona area going, leave Winter Park and Lake Nona alone. What's wrong with you? I'm joking. Then I have a couple of questions, just really one, and maybe I missed it, and it's in our progression plan, but when you look at the Department of Education's website, and it talks about what student needs to know, it talks about the option for a standard diploma, it talks about the option for the scholar diploma designation, the industry scholar diploma designation, and then of course there's a 16 credit Excel graduation that you can get as
18.
well.
18.
And so I'm just curious, do we have that listed in our progression plan so that parents, so that ours is like, if they go to the DOE and then go back to ours, are like, wait a minute. I just don't want parents to get confused.
On page 60, we have standard diploma pathways. We do have the 24 credit program, the 18 credit Excel that you were mentioning earlier, and then also the CTE pathway as well as the IB and ACE pathways.
What about the scholar designation?
Scholar designations are on page 61.
Perfect.
And then we also have on our charts, I know it's a lot of symbols, but we put symbols on there for the 18 credit, what you're going to need. And then in our appendix, which isn't on this document, but it will be in the final version, we actually have the printouts from the DOE that we include as well that kind of list everything.
So you have
in
like
there.
that 2-pager that's on the DO and you, oh, perfect.
Yes,
Thank-
we'll put
I
that in
figured
the
that you
appendix.
did. I didn't hear it, so I wanted to ask. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I was going to just comment that that I agree, Superintendent. I think, and we've talked about this, the more we can share with students that colleges are looking beyond that. And for the exact reason, like you said, they were getting a lot of students that had, these crazy high GPAs, but had no other personable skills, right? So they're looking at the whole picture more is what I'm hearing from college admissions specialists. So I think the more we can share that with students, the better. And so definitely. Member Vanos.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to start off by saying that, Member Gallo, with every joke, there's a hint of truth. So before I get, I did have a couple of questions, but before I get to mine, I just wanted to comment on a few things that my fellow board members have said. First of all, Member Gallo, when she's talking about the dual enrollment and the whole thing with class rank and all of that, I'm all about expanding options for dual enrollment, advanced studies, as you know, because it's important for our students and it's important for them, for their future. I mean, can we just... Don't hate me for saying this, but I'm just throwing this out there. Can we just remove class rank? Like, why are we setting our students up on a path to be ranked when it doesn't really matter? And it's making them make these, and it's. You want to stop me from
email
talking
board
right now?
member Stephanie Vanos at STEPHAINIE.Vanos.
Well, I mean, I know, and so I'm just saying, but I'm throwing this concept out here because if we don't think about the whole system, we can make little tweaks here and we can make little tweaks there and we can do this and that, and that's wonderful and fine. But I think it is a bigger problem than just a dual enrollment class. I mean, like, kids aren't taking driver's ed, for goodness sake, because they don't want to lower their we need kids to take driver's ed, like, for all of our safety. I mean, kids aren't taking orchestra or because it's weighted. I mean, this is like a crazy system that we've created. What can we do to make it less crazy? I think we can do some things. Just saying.
In all seriousness, email stephanie.vanos@ocps.net. No, we can absolutely look at that. First of all, big picture, as you're saying, the number of students that are impacted by this is very small, right? Because it's the small percentage that want the VAL and the SAL and the top 10 in their class. So when you look at the vast number of our students that are in our high schools, it's not a big number. However, having said that, I believe it is detrimental to some of these students that continually just focus and put this pressure on them, or the parents are putting on them, that it's all about, when the classes that they're taking. And so there was a lot of conversation and discussion when we decided to not have multiple valedictorians. I mean, it was massive. We had lots of feedback. We won't mention any names of school in particular, but there were some that the parents were very, very upset, and it took us 4 years to implement it. So I'm absolutely fine in having us reach out to other districts, see how they're addressing this. Are there other strategies? If we did do away with class rank, is that something that's, asked on certain applications? So, because we don't want to hinder our students, we absolutely will look into it. I share the board's concern. I am happy to see that more of our students are moving away from just the GPA. They are doing band. They are looking at their impact outside of their GPA and their service work in the community and at the school. And I think that's having a positive impact all around. So all kidding aside, we will take a look at the pros and cons if we did take away class ranking.
I appreciate that. And maybe it's something we can bring up at if we have student town halls this year, because I understand the immediate reaction, but when you say it only impacts 10 or 12 students, that's actually not true. Because there's more. I have 2 high schoolers. I just want to say who have friends, and it impacts more than 10 or 12 students. There's more students who are feeling that pressure and that desire, and can I get in there, and what can I do, and what did I mess up, and I think it does impact more than just 10 or 12 students. And, I'm not saying take away GPA. I'm not saying take away weight. I mean, I think all those things are important. I think, future options consider those things, and I think they're important. But I think, I'm just saying maybe we could just have some conversations about it and just look at it. And you can feel free to email me your hate emails. I can take it. Okay. I also wanted to comment, Member Felder was talking about the homeschool students graduating from our high schools. So I just wanted to ask, so are you saying that a student could be homeschooled for K through 11 and a half and then get an OCPS diploma?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that I feel like that's also crazy. So I would support, a minimum of 1 year. If you're going to graduate from an OCPS school, I would support a minimum of 1 year that you are in school. Now, here's my other question. When, let's say, a homeschool student transfers in, are they, could they say something like, well, I've completed all of the courses, so I'm just here for a semester, but I've actually completed everything I need for graduation, so they're actually not taking any, of the core classes?
They would still have to take something, so it would be electives or something like that if they're going to be enrolled in the school. So they need to take some sort of courses, not just, they might have met graduation requirements, but to be enrolled in the school, you have to take some courses. Could be electives.
Okay, so they could, and would it have to be, so they could just take half a day of electives?
Yes, but they also have to meet the graduation requirements, of course, to receive that diploma, which would include the assessments, making sure that they are taking all of the assessments that are needed to get the high school diploma.
Okay. And so the assessments, that's just like the algebra,
Correct.
That's just those couple.
The state assessments, yes.
That's all they have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then if a homeschool student were to transfer in, let's say even just for senior year, going back to GPA, do we just simply accept the transcript from the mom or dad and
Yes.
just?
Yes.
We're
Okay.
required to by the Florida Administrative Code.
Okay, that's interesting. I will go on. I would say that I would support at least 1 full year in our high schools, but I would be open to more than 1 year. If you want to get a diploma from Orange County Public Schools. Okay, those are just my follow-ups. Okay, going back to the plan, if we could just start at the beginning. When you have the grading scale in those first few pages, I know that we don't really actually start at a 0. We start at a 50, right?
That's only for, yes, for the report card buckets. So RC1, RC2, so on the report cards, the minimum grade is, the lowest you can get is 50%.
Okay, so I understand, and that reasoning, I understand that. I'm just, so they could actually have less than a 50% on, I guess, Skyward or whatever, but then it's just raised to a 50% for the report card. I'm just trying to understand the discrepancy between like allowing the 0 to 50. Okay.
Correct. So a teacher may calculate a student's grade below 50%. Skyward has in its system where it automatically moves it up to 50%.
Okay. 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 I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is if this is just the system we're going to use where we're starting at 50, it's a little confusing that it's still in here at 0, but I guess it makes sense to other people. Okay, and then going on page 14, you were talking about the CFEs, and so I just wanted to get a clarification on that. It sounded like when we had our conversation that 5th grade is not taking the CFE anymore?
No, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. The 5th graders are taking the CFEs, okay, but they don't calculate towards a student's grade in the class.
So just for evaluations?
Correct.
Yeah, so we went back and double checked, and so they do take CFEs for specials. They don't take it for like core courses.
Okay, so it's for specials for evaluations, but nothing for
and
grade
then
in 5th grade.
in elementary they only get the O,
Right.
S, N, and U, and so there wouldn't be a grade associated with that for the special areas.
Okay, and I guess we're in conversations about how to deal with that. Okay, going forward. Okay, great. Okay, my next question was on page 28, and I'm just going to bring this up every time because I just don't understand it. With this paper-based testing, is it a requirement by the Department of Education that students who don't have the IEP can't get a paper-based test, or is that our requirement of OCPS?
If they do not have an IEP, but they perhaps have a 504?
Well, no, I'm just asking, let's say you have a 8 or 9 year old and they don't have an IEP, their parent just says they get really distracted on a screen, and if you really want to understand what they know and what they're learning, they need to take a paper-based test.
I'd have to check with research on that.
Yeah, I was looking to see if
Research
Harold was
strategy.
here. I believe the answer to that, it's not OCPS, it's the
Yes,
state.
it's the state.
There is a process, if I'm not mistaken, for the parents to make that request, and I believe that request goes to the state. But we'll follow up with the board in writing.
Yes.
Okay, because I thought you said that you had to have an IEP or some kind of accommodation in order to get that. This is something I hear from parents quite a bit. Like, why can't we just use a paper-based test? I mean, I understand it takes longer to grade or it's not as easy, but that's really not what's best for students. And if you assume that the tests are actually, a reflection of what students know, then I would presume that you would want, the student to take the test in the method that best reflects what they know. So I'm just kind of wondering where that comes from, because it actually is something I hear about quite a bit. So I thank you for following up. And then along those same lines on page 35, and I think Member Felder brought up ELL students, and so I also did want to ask, in that situation, and I remember there were bills, but I can't remember whether they passed or not. Are ELL students tested in their native language, or are they only tested in English?
They are only tested in English. They do not have the statewide standardized assessments in their native languages. But we do have the exceptions in here for ELL students, and they actually do, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. Within that accommodations guide that I was talking about earlier, under the students with disabilities, they also have the accommodations you can use for ELL students as well. So I'm also going to add the hyperlink here too, so that way parents with ELL students know the different accommodations they can also have on the statewide standardized assessment. But unfortunately, no, it's not provided in their native language.
Okay. Are district tests provided in native language?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I would have to check with research, but
okay.
no.
Again, I just wish there was a better way to assess what students are learning or what their knowledge is. And I feel like it's hard to do that if they're not an English-speaking student. We're not really, it sounds like, able to assess what they know outside of speaking English.
May I, Madam Vice Chair? There actually is an assessment that is given that assesses the acquisition of the language, and I would need Joe. I don't remember the name of the is it Access for L's?
Yes.
And that does assess how they are acquiring the English language. There are multiple issues with having tests in the different languages. Remember, our children speak over 170 different languages and dialects. Teachers, for the most part, speak one language, and so having the ability to create and actually score and understand how to help the child based on that. We did have a change this year, and again, we'll follow up with the board, that the instructions for the assessments for the very first time are in their native language. So we went ahead and purchased that so that it was accessible, so at least the instructions were in their language, native language.
Oh, that's really good to hear. Thank you. I think that at least helps a little bit. I just, again, I mean, I have my own questions about some of the standardized tests, but I feel like if we are assuming that they are measuring students, I just want to make sure that they actually are measuring what students know. So thank you for that. I think I just have one more question, and it is with respect to the AP scores. And I don't remember where this is in the plan, but I think we talked about it, and I just wanted to get some clarity. So in an AP class, I think what you mentioned before was that the teacher has the discretion to determine how much that AP test counts in their class. So for example, an AP teacher could say, if you get a 3 or 4 or 5 on the test, you get an A in my class. But another teacher could say a 3 is a B, a 4 is an A. That there's no override policy, that the teacher can just decide sort of however they want to treat that test for the grade.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Member Vanos. Member Douglas.
I just want to applaud you. This document is thorough, specific. Really, you have no trouble scrolling in and out with the question that we ask. It's wonderful. Thank you so much for the work that you've done.
Thank you.
I also tend to forget that our superintendent is an ELL student like I am a little bit, okay? But she lost her accent. I still have mine. She's good. Okay. I just wanted to agree with Member Felder about the homeschool student and Member Vanos about we need to be having stringent rules about those students coming in and getting into our schools. They need to follow the same rules, the same standards as our students, and I agree for 1 year instead of just 6 months, and just have some elective and just get in and and graduate. So, yeah, I share that sentiment with them. Talking about ELL students, is there a possibility to have also the test translated? Now that we have ChatGPT, they can translate in different languages, like maybe faster than ever. Have the student answers in English, but have the test at least in Spanish or different languages, that the English and both languages, so they can choose which one, because a lot of our students do not even understand what is required of them to do. And they really hesitant to answer the question. They don't know, and I can see confusion, and desperation in their eyes when we give them the test because they don't understand what they've been required to do. So if there's any possibilities that we can translate the test, at least in different languages, but have the answers in English, I think that would be a better choice for them, truly.
May I? All right. So are you referring to the state assessment or the test that teachers give?
The state assessment, yes.
No. We
There's
have
no
no authority over that. I will tell you that Texas, and this I'm going to say this was prior to the pandemic, so we'd have to check. Texas was administering their state assessments in Spanish. I don't remember if they did other languages, but they had the test that was being given in English translated and given in Spanish. I don't know if they're continuing that practice, but our state does not, and we don't have control over that. Like I said, for the very first time, they have allowed us to give the instructions to them. And for mathematics, which is different than ELA, for many students, the math concepts and processes are the same in the various languages. So the ability to read the directions and what they need is very helpful. Unfortunately, you can't read the text in reading because part of what they're assessing is, can you read the words on there? So we can't. That is something that if the board feels strongly about, they can add it to their legislative platform for this upcoming I know we just ended, but for the session that will start in the fall. And because we have so many second language learners and the other large districts are in the same boat, that may be something that the state is willing to look at, especially since the technology exists now to so easily translate.
Yes.
And the scoring is online, so that wouldn't be an issue. But something for the board to consider.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you, Member Douglas. Member Salamanca?
Thank you. So a couple of things that others have mentioned. On the homeschool front, I'm also completely on board on it should be at least 1 year for students to get that OCPS diploma. It's fair as well as when we think about our funding and FTE and all that comes with that, I think it's more than fair to say that a student should be with us for at least a year to get the diploma. And so the other thing was on EL, I'm so happy to see all the changes. I too was an EL kid at 6, 7 years old. And I remember having no clue what was going on when FCAT would go down. It was just like everybody suddenly, it went from like normal school day to a test day, and I was sitting in front of a piece of paper that was a test, and FCAT, all in English. I had no clue what to do, and I got like ones on all my FCATs for second, third grade because I didn't know English. So like it wasn't that, but I would always do my math FCAT and do great. And I think one of the hardest things from the student perspective was like, how do you prove you're not academically behind when you just don't know English? And so I had terrible FCAT scores until the point I learned English. And after that point, all my FCAT scores were great. So it's great to see that we're addressing some of this because academic underperformance as an ELL student does not necessarily mean that they're not academically proficient. And usually what I've noticed is you kind of start catching some of this in the math scores because it's numbers. And so regardless of where you come, you kind of fight your way through numbers. But yeah, even back then, the test was only in English. I remember the science test being particularly difficult because that's even more complicated than plain English as well. So a lot of scars from those days. But we persevered. We're fine. We made it, fam. And then the other one was class rank. So definitely email Stephanie Vanos, OCPS.net. Here's my thing with class rank. I agree with everyone's concerns about what our students are enduring and putting themselves under these unnecessary stress. But getting rid of rank, getting rid of GPA, it addresses a symptom of a problem, but it doesn't address the problem. And the problem is if you actually ask students, like, why are you doing this? They'll always say, I I thought that's what I had to do. Like no one else, like I thought I had to just get the GPA. I thought that the only way to get the GPA was to do the dual enrollment, to do all the stacking of classes. So like the reason behind the why is actually misguidance and misinformation. And so our students who understand how they're going to be judged based on the school that they want to go to or whatever they want to do after graduation just behave differently because they just need that guidance. And so I continue to iterate this. I don't think the number of the top 10 is a problem. I don't think that the definition of a super scholar is a problem, or class rank or GPA, or that things are too competitive or not. Competitive kids will always be competitive. They'll find a system to be competitive about that. There's no undoing how these students operate. But the biggest difference really is that there are students who put themselves under stress because they think that that's what they have to do. They don't know. Like if you ask a simple question, how do you think you get into your ideal college? They'll be like, they'll give you some random answer. None of them will be consistent. And so any energy around class rank or super scholars, I always try to direct back to, we need strong guidance counselors. We need strong student first information centers for students to be able to navigate and advocate for themselves when they're trying to figure this out. Because even when you talk to the super scholars, they get confused about how to do this, and they have all points of view. You know, I've brought this up all the time. Dual enrollment with Valencia, even though we weigh it a certain way, out-of-state colleges do not view dual enrollment the same as they view AP and IB. And that continues to be something that a bunch of students, once they realize that when they apply to college, are like, I would have never done dual enrollment if I knew that there wasn't going to be perceived the same. Not because it's not the same, it's just that a lot of out-of-state universities aren't as familiar or will not be as familiar as they think about the like AP classes or IB classes. So nothing wrong with one or the other, it's just about different pathways. And so that, like, to the degree that we can continue to expand and our communication on pathways for students and that clarity, I think we can address more of the problem rather than the symptom. CFEs, I'm excited to have that conversation and continue having that conversation, because I think every time we talk about student progression plan, there's a bunch of stuff on CFEs that comes up that are clearly not for the student and the benefit of the student, and are just more testing for the sake of testing. And it is frustrating every time I'm up here and I see a CFE again. And AP scores. My trauma on AP scores was I had an AP psychology teacher who had said that if we got a 5 on the test, we would get an A in the class. And it was a really difficult class. Got a 5, did not get an A in the class because they changed their mind. And some students got it and some students didn't. And there was nothing as a student you could do. So go back to my report card, I got to be an AP psychology. And there was absolutely nothing anyone could do about it. And there were some other classes where if you got the other AP psychology teacher, it was like 80% of the class got A's. So I have a lot of points of view in this. I've talked to teachers about it. I understand their academic freedom. There is something that they feel very strongly about having control of that. But it is unfortunate because I actually don't think GPAs and grades are as standardized as what they should be. And that's unfortunate because it comes at the expense of the students. And it can be very unfair. So those are my thoughts. Thanks, Van.
Thank you, Member Salamanca. I queued back in, but I can let the superintendent respond to that if you'd like. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much. So 3 points. I'll make them quick. So the first is in response to Board Member Vanos's question. It is a state requirement. I was incorrect. It's only for students that have an IEP or a 504. And so that is the paper. So number one. Number two, we are not at a point where we can share, but we have some exciting news that we'll be able to roll out probably in the next couple of weeks about student being able to navigate the pathways and the course selection. in a much easier manner and have the information at their fingertips. So stay tuned for that. And the last one, and I say we, I was CAO at the time, and I think I still have scars from the conversation where we were looking to standardize the AP for the reasons that you have all mentioned. It's not fair, not just from school to school, but within the school. But it was very clear that that was something that fell within the teacher's academic freedom. It's in the contract. We can continue to have conversations about that, but teachers feel very passionate, as they do with the 50. That was something that was a priority of the board at the time, which is why it made it into policy. And in all honesty, that is the fairer way of doing it, because it's a 10-point scale all the way for all the grades. If you go 0 to 59, the child cannot dig themselves out of that hole. And to be honest with you, we actually pulled the data back then, and the percent of students that would have failed if you gave them a 0 versus the 50, they weren't getting away with it. But for some, maybe they were having a hard time that first 9 weeks or that first semester at home, then it was an opportunity that they could still see hope at the end of the tunnel. So, but I'd be happy to have that conversation. We did attempt to go in that path, but we were unsuccessful. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
No, absolutely. Thank you for the clarification. And no, I've always understood that reasoning. I think the struggle I always had was more with our lacks on due dates for work. And the only reason why is just because it's like a whole generation of kids that have absolutely no idea what it means to have a deadline, and they don't understand. And then when they get into college, as my child did, they're shocked when a professor goes, sorry, deadline is 11 o'clock. But I was sick. I'll never forget getting that call from my freshman in college. I don't understand, Mom. I told him I was sick, and he's still saying it was due. I'm like, yeah, hello, welcome to the real world. But she had grown up in OCPS, where she was allowed to wait until the end of the semester and turn in 15 assignments that were missing. So, yeah, that's one that I've always had to struggle with. And then, of course, the AP scores. Yeah, I've gotten my ears chewed off by parents before about that one, and I just had to keep saying it's teachers' academic, right? I don't know what we do about that. I just wanted to comment real fast about Member Salamanca. She's right on when she says, it's just a symptom of the problem. And I agree, it is a problem, Member Vanos, with the pressure that these kids are under. And I think she's got the right idea that it's really got to be around the strong guidance and the strong advising. But I also think a huge piece of this is got to be parent education. And letting parents, helping parents understand, or not even understand, but help them make that paradigm shift that it's okay if your child doesn't go to a 4-year university, or if your child doesn't get into the University of Florida, which I hear so much from parents that are so heartbroken over that the likelihood of your child getting into the University of Florida at this point is very, very few and far between. I mean, their average GPA was 4.5. The median GPA of what they accepted this year was 4.5. Just the median. That's not even the highest. That was their midpoint of 4.5. The median SAT score they accepted this year was, I want to say it was 1450. That's the median. So, the real issue is expressing to students that there are different pathways, as Member Salamanca said. And every time I go speak to students, I just had this conversation when I was meeting with some high school students. I told them, that, you have other options. There are other pathways to get to where you want. And I tell them the story of my oldest daughter, who was an AP kid but didn't get into FSU. She wanted to go to FSU. That particular year, they had 80,000 applicants. They only accepted 6,500 kids, so she didn't get in. But that didn't stop her. She moved to Tallahassee, went to Tallahassee Community College for a year, got her AA there, and transferred into FSU. And she just graduated with her degree from FSU. When I told kids that at one of my high schools about a month ago, they all looked around like they had no idea that this was even an option. And I said, yes, and she's about to start law school. So it didn't stop her from where she wanted to go. She has the same degree. And when I said she has that same degree from FSU that the kids who went there as freshmen have, the look on their faces was like they had no idea that was like, I don't know what it is. It's just like we get them on this track, like it's college acceptance, university acceptance, and that's it. And that we just have to do a better job at that. I think that piece of, that there are whole other options. Let's look at the whole picture. What do you really want to get out of high school? What do you want to be when you get older? And how do we get you there? Not always what college do you want to get into, but, what do you want to be? How do we get you there? What are the different ways you can get there? Because there are so many other ways that the way the state university system is now, you really have to be open to exploring and looking at. So those are my thoughts on that. I think Member Felder queued back in. Go ahead.
You said what you said, Member Byrd. When I was teaching, I had several students who would say to me what college they university wanted to go to. One of my students, God bless her soul, she said, I want to go to Yale. I said, okay, let's look at what the rankings and what we need to do. And they said, I need a X amount of SAT scores. I don't have that. They should just let me go because I want to. I said, beloved, it doesn't happen like that. I said, you just can't go because you want to. And then she said, okay, let me look at University of Florida. And she didn't have the score for that. She said, I don't know why, if they should want us to go to college. I said, you know what? There's a junior college in Gainesville. Let's work on that. You can go to this junior college, and you can perhaps transfer to University of Florida. I say, even at Valencia, it's now, you go to Valencia 4 years now, but 2 years at Valencia, that's an automatic route into UCF if you keep your grades and do the right thing. But see, in saying that, this is why public schools and OCPS makes a difference. All of these, listen here, all of these options that we have, and and I'm gonna say it, it's a poor frog that won't praise his own pond. Let me tell you something. We have wonderful options for students. And ranking, I was sharing with Member Gallo, I would have had a fit if we couldn't rank when I was in school, baby, because I ranked. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to have a ranking. And I'm 68 years old, so I know right now they want a ranking. But, this is why I think that what we offer here in this district and the work, again, that you ladies have done, there are so many options here for success. It's so many options here. Why wouldn't you want to come to school? I understand some students have socialization issues, and we have that for you too. But just to opt because you don't like this or like that, and I'm just going to come at the last minute and graduate. No, boo-boo. That's not how that works. So I appreciate the options that we have. And, of course, as Member Byrd said earlier in this discussion, we're going to have to do better with our PR. Like you getting all that mailing in for homeschooling, whatever, those schools. Because I think if people really knew, what we have to offer, they would run. They would run, because they would run to see and be a part of this district. So I just wanted to kind of amen you on that, Byrd. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Felder. It's always a good day when you get an amen from Member Felder. And with that, there are no more board members. Oh, General Counsel?
So I just wanted to point out, given this conversation, I went to Valencia Community College. And that was back in the day when they had, if you're in the top 10% of your high school class, you would go 2 years for free. So I took advantage for that, transferred up to Florida, got my degree there, went to UF for law school. I struggle with that with my son, who was like, he's going to Valencia. And I'm like, no, that is a guaranteed way into a 4-year university. You don't even have to mess with taking 800 student geology 1,000, at Florida. You can just go, get your 2-year degree, transfer up, get in there. It's the way to do it. And, if I can just encourage folks to do it and students to do it and not feel, hey, I'm going to a junior college or a community college, or they call them state colleges now. I'm showing my age, thank you. It's the way to do it, and it was a great option, and I would encourage all students to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Palmerini. And it's parents too, though. I'm on Facebook groups for college acceptances, and some of the comments, these parents are like heartbroken, like they're like devastated, like they have failed or something as parents. So I think it's just a whole conversation we just have to change, and it's just going to take time to make it okay. And I think parents talking about it, I share my story all the time about that I thought for sure this was a kid that was gifted in AP, and I thought for sure my kid was going to be going to a university. And then when that didn't happen, it's okay because it worked out, and that was the path that was supposed to happen. And she to be honest, if you talk to my daughter will tell you that she had the best experience there because she was in the honors college. It was small. They sent her to speak at conferences, things that never would have happened at FSU actually. So it all worked out the way it was supposed to. But I think parents sharing that, and I think Mr. Palmerini, you sharing your experience with that as a parent is important to continue to get that message out that it's okay. Life will go on, and it's more important that they end up where they're supposed to be, right? And with that, we have no more speakers queued up. Is there any further business that needs to be discussed for this work session? Okay, in that case, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you both. We appreciate you.
Thank you.